If there is one thing that keeps the video game industry ticking, it is hype. Sometimes it's a positive, but often it's a force of evil, ha ha ha, getting us all excited about games that will only end up disappointing us, the same way I disappoint my parents. I'm just joking. My dad doesn't care I exist. Today, we're going to look at those very disappointments, the games, not me, and rank them in some kind of order, maybe in a top 10. And in this very special episode, for the first time, I'm going to try and pair each game up with a food metaphor, because it's got to be lunchtime for some of you watching. Hopefully that'll keep your attention up. Number 10! Who here remembers SimCity? What a great bunch of games they were. After a few years of making games, the developers got EA-ified, becoming a hollow shell of their former selves, and then they released this. Touted as the next generation of SimCity games, it does look lovely, and we were promised that this would revitalize the beloved franchise. That, it did not do. It didn't even work. Users couldn't even get into the game on launch due to their servers not being able to keep up. If this disappointment were a food, it would be some bland, poorly cooked, starchy plain rice. But the rice requires a modem connection to be eaten, any actual flavour comes in the form of a paid add-on, and the bowl is on fire. Games being overhyped isn't always the developers' or publishers' fault. Sometimes we can only blame ourselves. When we got a hint of an online Elder Scrolls game back in 2012, we all jumped to the same conclusion. It's Skyrim, the MMO. Even as we received information showing us that this wasn't the case, we interpreted that to be, it's Skyrim the MMO, but better. Long story short, it wasn't. It was okay, but It's kinda like those supermarket ready meal versions of like pad thai or whatever. You know what it could be, and you build that up in your head. You can eat it, but it's none of the things you expected, you know? It's edible, but not exciting. These metaphors are great. So we all know Pokemon Go. It reinvented everything. Phone games, augmented reality, walking. So when developers Niantic said they were going to reinvent all the things they've already reinvented, but make it about Harry Potter, people were ready to discard their Pikachu and Nidomacoolits into the trash and take on this new experience. But it just wasn't as good. If I say Harry Potter Wizards Unite to you, most of you will hit me with a blank stare. But for a while, it was all everyone talked about, until it fizzled out and people went to go pick their discarded Poke Gubbins out of the bin. It's like all those pop-up restaurants that try to reinvent the burger. They replace the bread with avocado or sub the tomato sauce for beans. The resulting product just isn't as good. Stick with what you had, hipster burger joints. It worked well as it was. So we can't talk about overhyped games without mentioning the spokesperson for unrealistic expectations, Peter Molyneux. So he's done it with pretty much every video game he's been involved with, but none more so than Fable. It wasn't a bad game by any stretch, but it's just not what old Molyneux said it would be. We were promised a mixing of genres, in-depth kingdom management, and actions that meaningfully imprinted on your loyal little subjects' lives. All we got was Fable II with extra steps. It's essentially the supermarket's own brand ready meals. But, wait for it, the fancy ones. We're talking Tesco finest, baby. These are enjoyable, but probably not worth the extra money nor excitement that you put in whilst watching the microwave like a salivating dog. Ding ding! MMORPGs come and go, and they often get touted as the next big thing. More directly, they get slated as the game that will topple World of Warcraft from its position as the premier game in the genre. Well, WoW is still standing, because these games are more often than not grossly overhyped. New World is a prime example. It was talked about for years, it was exciting, mysterious. Release day saw some staggering numbers as players far and wide sought to establish their place in the world, but very quickly, and I'm talking in a matter of weeks, the player base died out, till it was just a fraction of what it was. In a world of 1,000 activities, it became very clear that most of them were exactly the same. New World is like a pizza. Your first bite, you think, this is amazing. Then in your second, you realise that the dough isn't properly cooked, there's no sauce, and the toppings just don't work. It's making me sad. We've our second game from ZeniMax Online Studios now, and let's be frank, Fallout 76 went a lot worse for them than their lukewarm reception from Elder Scrolls Online. Despite groans from sectors of their fanbase that they were shoving this game down their throats, the developers kept going. This is the future, they tout, hammering this new game into their audience's fat little needy faces. Here, have this, you little audience. Well, ZeniMax, it's no future I want to be a part of. It was a mess. The concept kind of works, and it did have a fun gameplay loop, but the bugs, good lord, the bugs. Yes, they steered the course, and it is in a better place now. But come on, look at it. So, food metaphor, I don't even know anymore, like a hunk of meat that's just filled with bugs. Ugh. Not very appetizing, but neither was the game, so there we go. What went wrong with Anthem? The game was absolutely everywhere. The next Destiny, we were told. Like most of us, I never played it, and I never will, especially given that BioWare ceased to provide any updates for it, discarding it like a worn-out old sock. It's a shame, because I could see myself playing it, as did all those poor souls who pre-ordered it. To me, Anthem seems like one of those ostentatious, gold-plated steaks that you get in those stupid, vastly overpriced steakhouses. Initially, you're caught up in the flashiness of it all, but as you get through it, you realize that gold, obviously, tastes like nothing, and it makes you realize the product underneath is dry and boring. Then the next day, all you're left with is the buyer's regret of wasting your money, with only vaguely sparkly excrement left to remember it by. Let's talk about No Man's Sky. For those unfamiliar, the chain of events is basically this. Number 1, indie dev makes an internal project about space. Number 2, dev gets persuaded to show the game to the public. Number 3, public proceeds to lose their mind. Number 4, everyone wants to play. Number 5, dev announces new features. And then steps 3, 4, and 5 pretty much kept repeating throughout the course of development, with fans getting more and more rabid until they finally released the finished product. And it was a hot mess. Nearly all of the promised features just weren't there, and the public was not happy in the slightest. However, the devs handled this better than everyone else on this list. Rather than treating the fans like patsies, they did eventually make things right by providing a few years of support with a bunch of free updates, and in my books, they actually redeemed themselves. Not enough for them to avoid a food analogy, however. No Man's Sky is like going to a restaurant and seeing something marvelous on the menu. Absurd, yet incredible. Your perfect idea of food, but when it arrives, you're presented with a soggy, flaccid carrot. Maybe this carrot could have been used to make something amazing, and maybe you'll want to come back to it in a few years. And indeed, the carrot may well have become that perfect food that you initially craved, but at this point in time, as it arrives in front of you, all you have is a sad, floppy, impotent carrot. Alright, let's look at something in very recent memory that left many of us burned. Cyberpunk 2077. So the hype train for this started way back in 2016, and year on year we got brief glimpses that touted something that could be the pinnacle of gaming. Given the fact that it was from the team that brought us The Witcher 3, we can be forgiven for putting our faith in the game being something special. The game did get delayed, but they kept saying the right things, that they didn't want to release it in an unfinished state. Which is confusing, and I do get lost at this bit. Firstly, the bugs. Again, everywhere, as far as the eye can see. Secondly, the game just didn't work for most players. At the very least, we do like our games to work. Cyberpunk is a lovely, delicate, aromatic coq au vin. Sounds lovely, doesn't it? Well, you get served it and it just isn't ready yet. But the chicken is raw, and the wine sauce is just a bunch of grapes. But it could be worse. Let's look at number 1. Oh lord, how I hate Duke Nukem Forever. This game, it's just so bad. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Everything else on here has some kind of redeeming feature, but you will find no such thing with Duke. I can't even I can't even say it. You'll find no such thing here. This was the game that started its development during the golden age of FPS games, and was hailed to be the bringer of a second great age. It would solve world hunger, bring world peace, it would mend generational gaps, and usher in a new era of human enlightenment. But it didn't. It was To put it plainly, Duke Nukem is like going out to dinner somewhere that's been nothing but good to you over the past few years, placing your order, being told it'll be with you shortly, but time passes, you complain, they say it'll be there soon, they keep saying how good the meal is, they pelt you with grapes, your date leaves because you're covered in grape juice. Suddenly, 15 years have passed, and you're a husk of your former self all alone there, still sitting on the same chair, wondering how you've endured this long. Lo and behold, the waiter comes out. He approaches your table, throws down some slop, and then begins to violently kick you in the crotch for 5 or 6 hours, hurling abuse at you, and making cutting sexual remarks about your mother. Actually, that genuinely sounds better than Duke Nukem Forever. And there we have it, my 10 most overhyped games. What have we learnt? Well, that I really dislike Duke Nukem Forever, and that both we as gamers and developers need to learn to curb our expectations about games. But anyway, I'm hungry. I've got a floppy carrot of my name on it in the fridge, and maybe a light crotch stomping for afterwards. See you next time, bye!